I got sick over Thanksgiving, and now here I am, still sick, barely able to record anything. While I was sick, I started thinking about a lot of things, especially because I couldn't do anything. One of the things I started overthinking about was Gmod maps. Like, everyone who's played Gmod knows about the liminal type of feeling that the maps give off. I'm the type of person who overthinks about a lot of little details about something, even though it's not important. There is a map that I took screenshots of because throughout the whole thing, you were indoors of like an apartment type of setting, but I didn't see any windows. And when I finally did see a window, it was blocked off by blinds, giving it an enclosed type of feeling. And while the usual line of thinking was, oh, there's a window, so obviously there's an outside, the blinds are just closed, that's not what I thought. Later on in the video, you could see the camera clipping through the wall, and there was no outside. It was just a big void, which means that entire universe is secluded to that one building, that one interior of a building. Same thing for almost every other Gmod map they played. Some of my favorite ones to look back on were Christmas specials. I don't know why, but whether it was hide and seek or like guess who or prop hunt, all the Christmas maps had the same secluded type of feeling because they would always play on like Christmas towns. Because they were created as maps, they had to have limitations and borders. And the way they achieved that was by making, skybox textures that had trees in the distance, maybe mountains. It was always like a cloudy sky. The architecture would also always be enclosed to a specific area. Like there would be a tunnel, but that tunnel wouldn't lead anywhere. And all the skyboxes, they always looked like those painted walls in Squid Game, where they would be painted like cloudy skies with maybe no blue skies with white clouds, making it look like a sunny day. But you can obviously tell that it was an enclosed space, just really, really big. And that got me thinking of something that I saw in a very old, I don't know, documentary when people were first discovering how infinite the universe was. People used to believe that like it wasn't infinite or that it was enclosed. Then there was a paradox that was brought up. I think the paradox went like, if you shot an arrow into space, if it was not infinite, then it would hit a wall. But if it hit a wall, there must be another side to that wall. So if you stand on top of that wall and shoot another arrow, it should go off infinitely. But if it hits another wall, that wall should have another side to it. And so that kind of displayed the thought experiment, proved that the universe was infinite, I guess. I don't know, it's been like 15 since I've seen it. Maybe less, but it's been a long time. In those Gmod maps, if you were to shoot an arrow and it were to hit the edge of the map, that's the end of the map. And if you go to the edge of the map and you shoot another arrow, it's never gonna hit anything, because that's it. That's all that's been simulated. That world is contained to itself. Those towns are the only towns in existence for that server. And since I watched all those videos a long time ago, every time I would ever travel and I would go through towns that were stationed in the mountains, I don't know why it said station. I never looked up their names or what they were called or where they were, because I would usually just be in the backseat either listening to music or falling asleep. So every time we would travel somewhere, I would just zone out, fall asleep, and then come back whenever we were refueling or buying stuff at one of the gas stations in these towns. And since my perception was always right next to the highway, a gas station, or maybe a supermarket, and whatever I could see from those locations, they looked exactly like Gmod towns. They were enclosed. They looked enclosed from all the trees, but obviously I had an understanding that it was connected to the wider world, especially through the internet. So when I took those feelings that I got in those towns and then rewatch these Gmod videos, it gives an even more liminal feel to those Gmod maps. I don't even remember what my point was. I don't even remember what I was talking about. What was my point? Why did I bring up Gmod? I don't remember. I was sick and at home. I don't even own Gmod, but I still get nostalgia just by watching Gmod videos or anything that reminds me of Gmod, just because of how often I watched it when I was younger. I think another reason why I enjoy Gmod maps or why they give me another nostalgia, and specifically the Christmas maps, is because the Christmas season usually isn't so jolly for me. I mean, there's attempts by family members to make it jolly, but personally, I just don't enjoy being around loud groups of people for very long periods of time. So every Christmas, I usually end up sitting on my own in my room watching videos that I enjoy. And obviously, the Vanos Gaming Gmod videos end up popping up. And since they always end up uploading Christmas videos during that time, obviously, those would be the sensations that I would memorize, I guess. And Christmas, I also associate with sitting alone in my room, listening to creepy pastas and other stuff like that, listening to Rainbot and Expo, and more recently, Windigoon. A lot of the creepypasta reading channels like Let's Read, there would be some stories that I would like listen to hours worth of, what do you call it? I just said it. Creepypasta readings and Reddit stories from like No Sleep. Like there was a Let's Read video that I guess is called The Deer Story by the comment section that for some reason I enjoyed listening to, and it stayed in my mind. And a few years after listening to it, I listened through like maybe 10 videos before I finally found it again. And for some reason, those stories kind of stick in my mind. And I guess since I'd always be listening to those stories while I'm doing something else, my mind would create depictions of the stories. But because of the media I was watching at the time, I would always imagine them as Gmod maps, I guess I could say. I can imagine a skybox, simple geometry, and basic textures, I guess you could say, to fill up the scene and create a world within there, within my mind. And the fact that I was messing around with Blender and Unity at the time probably doesn't help with how my mind was creating imaginary worlds.